Hello, my name's Rick Watson, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family. The tombstone that you just saw was that of my grandmother and granddad, Charlie Watson and Willie Watson. Now, Charlie's mom's name was Liddy, and his dad's name was Allie Watson. My grandmother, Willie Watson, we called her Mama Watson, was a Davis, and her dad's name was Hiram Wilburn Davis, and they called him Colonel. His mama's name was Melissa. Her mama's name was Melissa. And anyhow, they lived in these parts, and my Mama Watson told me a really neat story about how she and Pap met. She said she'd gone to church one spring Sunday morning. It was warm, and she was on the back row fanning herself with a fan, and he walked by the window, and this was back when they didn't really have glass in the windows. It was kind of open air. And so he saw her in there, and I guess he took a liking to her, and he tossed a rose through the back window. And that rose started a relationship and a love that lasted until he died in 1967. Now, they lived in a mining camp, and he was a miner, and they made their way early on there. But at some point in the early 50s, the work played out like it did for most people here in Alabama in the mining industry. And so they moved to Hammond, Indiana, and they lived up there for some time. The work he found was in a garbage dump, city dump in Hammond. And he enjoyed that job. He found a lot of really neat things. But one of the things that he gave me once when we went to visit him up in Hammond, Indiana, he had collected a gallon jar full of cat-eye marbles. And he gave me those marbles to take home with me. And so I brought them home and put them in the windowsill. And mornings when the sun would rise and hit that jar of cat-eye marbles, it cast a kaleidoscope of color all over the walls of that room. And so that just kind of stuck out in my mind as a fond memory of my granddad. When they moved back to Alabama sometime much later in the 50s, they built a house down in West Pratt, and it was next to where we lived at the time. And out in his yard, he was like a contractor for the mines, and out in his yard underneath the old black cherry tree out there, he built mining cars for the old push mines that operated at that time still. And he also shoed mules, mining mules that they used, and so that's kind of how he did to make ends meet while he was there. Together, Willie and Charlie had they had 5 kids. They had one, I think, that was born dead or didn't live very long. His name was Leo Watson. And then my dad, all the kids that lived, there were 4 that lived. My dad, Charles Watson Jr., and he married my mom, Elwanda Ferguson, and her parents were Ed and Velma Ferguson of Townley, up in that area of Walker County. And they had 4 kids. They had my older brother Neil Watson, he's passed away now. My older sister Mary Lois Watson Capps, she married James Capps. Then there was me. I married Gilda K. Phillips, and I had a younger sister 10 years younger than me, Christy, and she married a Reed, James Reed. And then my baby brother Darren Watson, Darren Lee, died at 35, much too young. My dad's next younger sister, just younger than him, was Christine Watson, and she married a Stevens. And she had 3 kids, Carlton, which was Neil's age, Randall, who was almost Mary Lois's age, and Regina, which was the baby girl at the time, but she was my age. Also was Willa Dean, and she married Frank Levan, who fought in World War II. I think he was a medic. And they had 3 kids, the oldest being Bruce, who's a Church of God preacher in Empire, Alabama now. They had the middle son's name was Mickey Lean. He was just a little bit younger than me, and we were almost like brothers. He stayed with us a great deal when he was growing up. And then their baby sister's name was Maeva Levan, and she married Bobby Phillips. Now, the baby brother of the bunch, his name was Vernon Watson. We called him Pete. But Pete and Eunice, his wife Eunice, she was a Finley, they had two kids, the oldest being Robbie Lane, which was just a little bit younger than me, and Frankie, which was younger than my Ava, so he was the youngest of the family. And so a little bit later on, I'll be doing subsequent videos to talk about each of these other families, the Stevenses and LeVans and Pete Watson's kids, but I'll do those in subsequent videos.